with us, everyone. Follow.
Humbug. So he's had a couple of flops? Well, who hasn't?
You have a new book in mind?
Oh, of course he does.
My lamp's gone out. I've run out of ideas.
Are we in trouble?
No, of course not.
I have told you not to disturb me when I am working.
On Christmas Eve, the spirits pour into the night.
Look here, Mr. Dickens. Pickpockets, streetwalkers, humbug. Those people don't belong in books.
Charles!
It's about a miser, and on Christmas Eve, he meets some kind of supernatural guides.
Does it have a title?
Humbug, A Miser's Lament. Christmas ghost story, Christmas song. Christmas ballad, something like that.
Get the name right, and the character will appear. Scratch. Scrounger. Come on. Scrooge.
Shut the window. You think I'm made of money?
Mr. Scrooge. How delightful to meet you, sir.
Sorry, I can't say the same.
You and I are going to do wonderful things together.
How do you make a world come alive? I could almost see and hear them people.
Even if you'd already written it, we couldn't possibly get it printed and distributed in only 6 weeks.
If I can't finish it, I'll never write again.
The characters won't do what I want.
I'm the author here.
Allegedly.
A jolly ghost. What's that mean?
In the season of hope, we will shut out nothing, and everyone will be welcome.
I have to get to the printers by 9 o'clock.
But you still don't have an ending.
Merry, Merry Christmas to one and all.
That's enough. Back to work.
God bless us, everyone.
I want to talk about this movie. We're going to only talk about this movie in a minute. But Dan, I said this to you backstage, and I genuinely believe this. You might be the hardest working man in movies and TV right now.
Thank you.
How many projects do you have that just came out this year?
Oh God, I sort of lost count, I think.
Including a 10-episode TV show, it's about seven or eight, I think.
It's been a busy year, yeah.
How busy? Do you feel busy?
Right now I feel very, very calm. This is a very calm, not busy environment. This is lovely. Yeah.
Brett, tell me about adapting this book and sort of trying to inject, the feeling of A Christmas Carol into this movie that's just about the sort of writing of A Christmas Carol.
Yeah, that was complicated, but great fun to do. I mean, it kind of lends itself to being told via the story of Dickens's youthful Dickens. Well, how old are you in this?
31.
31, yes.
No beard yet.
No beard yet. So he's a handsome man about town. Remind you of anyone? And there's actually yes, exactly. But there's a fantastic portrait they did of him in 1840 in Boston. And he kind of looks like Dan, and he's got
that's where we got the hair
wig,
from.
with the hair
Yeah,
and stuff.
yeah.
So
sort of gene.
it was just really nice to do a young kind of vibrant Dickens that no one had seen before.
I feel like he's rarely thought of that way, simply because the novels are from a period of time that you never think of youthful.
Yeah, well, it's the problem of I guess the way we traditionally look at the past, and anything set in the Victorian period must be very grey and very boring. And it's like, come on, like this guy was, I mean, you look at any one of his books and there are childish, silly, playful, really fun episodes that go into really, really dark, melodramatic, really tragic. And, his mood swings were pretty violent, I think. Yeah. And it was sort of fun to play with that in this very intense 6-week period of his life. It's not really this is not a cradle to grave biopic by any means. This is just, right, I mean, it's a very it's a big life to take on as well. But just to take a neat slice of somebody's life that tells us, the bigger picture about, where they were at that specific time. And he was under a lot of pressure. He had 4 kids, 1 on the way, mounting debts. He had 3 not very successful books in a row. But this burning ambition to write something that was socially relevant and had this sort of universal human theme in it. And he said, yeah, I'm going to do that by Christmas. And yeah, and sort of drove himself nearly mad, I think.
What's it like to play a writer? I know that's a broad question, but I mean, when it comes to sitting down, and there are so many scenes where you literally have to sit there alone and kind of be like, oh, what's going on? What am I thinking about?
Yeah, well, I mean, it is a film as much about the creative process as about Christmas, and I think, you know, it's often the problem with films about writers, same with films about painters. It's like nobody really wants to see a guy standing in front of a canvas sort of doing that. Like, that's not that interesting inherently, unless what they're doing is, you know, stylistically particular. But, you know, it's really about what was behind this work, what drove this person to create this thing, which, you know, when you think about Christmas Carol, the way that it's permeated our culture in a way that very few books really have. And, you know, what spurred this guy into doing that? So we really wanted to avoid, as much as possible, to avoid the guy at the desk actually writing. We see very few scenes of that, really. There's a couple of frenzied moments, but
I mean,
more often than not, he's sitting at the desk not writing because he can't crack this story.
Yeah, I mean, the creative process is a very internal struggle, which doesn't make for very good cinema, really.
It's not lend itself to good scenes.
So, you know.
But he did have a habit, and this is documented by his daughter in her diaries, that she'd wander into his study and find Dad in the mirror just pulling these weird faces and making these voices, and like until he could come up with the name and the actualization of this character, he couldn't work with them, couldn't put them in the book, and so we play with that in the movie.
And that's the great conceit of the movie: is characters come to life and visit him and kind of haunt him and give him psychotherapy and sort him out.
In the same way of the actual Christmas Carol, right? Like Ebenezer Scrooge is haunted by these. You know, he was haunted by Ebenezer and these sort of other characters.
Exactly. That's the beauty of the script. It kind of mirrors the journey we go in Christmas Carol.
And it kind of makes your life as a director just like that much easier, right?
Oh man,
Depicting the creative struggle.
Absolute pictures, as opposed to Dan writing and scrapping up a piece of paper and go, oh, let's do that again. So no, it was fantastic.
But we made sure that he had very inky fingers.
Oh yeah.
If you look very closely, every single scene, you know, if you know anybody who writes with a fountain pen a lot, there's always like, in fact, look, I have a little bit on my finger right now.
Pens. I was
Inky fingers. That's the alternative title for this movie.
Is it a lot of pressure playing Dickens? Do you put pressure on yourself?
I mean, I put pressure on myself anyway, just in general, I think. No, I think the pressure in terms of, like, you know, roles that have gone before is really on Plummer with Scrooge, who's such a kind of iconic figure. Everybody has their Scrooge, whether it's Scrooge McDuck or, you know, Michael Caine in The Muppet Christmas Carol, or Alistair Sim, or
for us, wasn't he, Scrooge
McDuck?
Oh
yeah, Scrooge McDuck is all over this movie. But no, I mean, Dickens hasn't been portrayed that much on screen. There are very few films about the man himself, really, and yeah, it's interesting just to sort of dig into a different part of his life.
Dan makes it just feel effortless, really. I just gave him the words and got out of the way, and kind of did the rest of it, and we just captured it on film. You know, he makes it sound very easy, but he puts a lot of work into it. He comes fully formed on set, and it's just, as a director, it's a real pleasure.
And what about, I mean, it feels like you wouldn't be able to make this movie without Christopher Plummer playing Ebenezer. Like, who else could play Ebenezer Scrooge at this point? I can't think of anybody.
And it's kind of ridiculous he's never done it before. Yeah. I mean, he's absolutely pitch perfect for it. He's hysterical, he's kind of naughty boy, he terrifies you. I mean, comes with having made just about every movie in the world in the last 88 years of his life.
Movies going forward, I gather.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's right.
That's true. All movies going forward, he's going to be in. So you guys, you get this script, and what's the toughest part about depicting Charles Dickens and sort of creating A Christmas Carol? I imagine a lot of pressure put on yourselves because it's an iconic book, a historical iconic writer, and a story that everybody knows.
You know, Dan took the pressure. I mean, we sat very early on and said, look, let's just have fun with it. Let's not be kind of too
reverential, I think.
Yeah.
We were, with the greatest respect to the man, we wanted to sort of make him and the story come alive. So we wanted to avoid that sort of period drama trope that things can fall into sometimes. And I love Barrett's film Miss Pettigrew Lives for a Day with Frances McDormand, Amy Adams, and it just had that, there was like a lightness of touch and a tone where, you know, it's so delightful to remember. It's like, oh yeah, people were probably funny in the 20s. It's not like, you know, that sort of, I don't know why
and Dickens was known as this raconteur and fun, bon vivant, and used to kind of man about town. Used to have a great time. And it's just that's the bit that's never kind of captured before. And so I think we took that and Dan rolled with it.
And to also to get to sort of fill the cast with some great British comedic talent as well. You know, Justin Edwards and Miles Jupp as Thackeray. You know, just getting that very kind
Jonathan Pryce is there as well.
Jonathan Pryce, Miriam
incredible.
Margolyes, Simon Callow. Right. Yeah, man, it was fun.
We've got a lot of Christmas cast to send.
When you're making something like this and you're telling a story that, even though it's only 6 weeks in the period of Dickens' life, you know, it's fun to be referential to everything we know about Dickens in terms of what's going to happen later in his life or what happened before. How much of that is in the script and how much of that is you guys on set being like, oh, let's just drop this little thing in here that people will kind of pick up?
Well, Donald Sumter definitely picked up on the more joke. There's a couple of little sort of references. For anybody who knows a couple of other Dickens things.
You know, there are a lot of Easter eggs in it for a Christmas movie. So is all I can say. It's if you know your Dickens, you'll really love it. If you don't know your Dickens, it'll be inspiring. You know, if anyone goes away and reads a Dickens book after this, that's my job done.
If you haven't read a Dickens book, what are you doing?
Exactly. You know, it's very joyous. I mean, you know, if you know Christmas Carol, it's great fun. If you don't know it, I think it's, which I just don't believe no one knows Christmas Carol. So even if you watch Muppets Christmas Carol, you got it.
I feel like people know Christmas Carol and Scrooge without even, they might not even know who Dickens is.
Scrooge almost transcends the book. I mean, it is extraordinary how he's such an archetype of greed and misery. Yeah.
Well, he's the archetype of like how Christmas and the holidays can change somebody.
Yeah, it's a redemptive story, you know, and that's why I think it's lasted for the hundreds of years it has and has never been out of print. It's because it's truly, you know, it's
a deeply hopeful story as well, you know, and Dickens was very, very depressed by the society and the world he was seeing around him, this rise of rampant industrial capitalism, and it was really eating him up. And he wanted to believe that there was this goodness and, you know, there's hope for everybody, I think. And to sort of remember, as the sort of winter solstice is, it's like remembering that the light will return in that sort of darkest hour of the year, that, you know, in the bleakest, most awful time that you could possibly be living in, things might get better.
Yeah.
And, I mean, that's really important to hang on to.
It's really good to hold on to right now.
It's interesting times. But, you know, he was a populist. That was the genius of him, really. I think he would have loved this film. Just because, you know, it's mad and it's nuts and it's out there and it's, you know, it's a bit like the stuff he wrote. I mean, if you look at Christmas Carol, it's actually a time travel movie. You know, it's a man who goes back and looks at his life, which is a well-worn path now, but it's never done before. It was just so kooky at the time.
He invented time travel as well.
He did.
There you go. There's other things.
But I mean, he was an extraordinary character.
And time travel.
But his genius is that through entertainment, through making you laugh and cry, he kind of delivered this subtext about what we should be to our fellow man, how we should treat people, and without hitting you over the head with a hammer. And I think that was his true genius, and that's why he has a lasting legacy, I think.
And this is also, you know, one of the things that the film sort of talks about is that before A Christmas Carol, Christmas wasn't really that major of a holiday, right?
It's sort of fallen out of vogue a bit. It was a sort of minor religious festival. It wasn't the big sort of cultural celebration that we have now, no. And so it really was a very, very unusual idea to want to write a Christmas book. But he saw something, like I said, in this festival, this sort of midwinter festival, that he could hang these ideas on and use that, you know, the mythology of that time and that moment in the year to sort of, to hang his tale. It's beautiful.
Yeah. What drew you to directing the film?
He is the man who invented Christmas for me, because I come from a family that didn't celebrate Christmas. And so I didn't understand why my friends were having a great time at Christmas and in the north of England, which is a big place for Christmas.
Did you feel left out?
Yeah, I did. I was like, come on. I was like, where are my presents? And and I read the book, and I must have been about 11 or something, and it kind of went, I get it. And every time I've read it since, I get a little bit more. I think at that time you read it and you go, oh, it's fun. You're sledding and you're and it's snowing and everyone's giving presents. But you read it a bit later and you go, oh, actually, it's about a man who's giving back or didn't give back, and what the world would be like if you were a better person. And it's just a beautiful book. And I've been trying to weave Christmas Carol script into my life for a while, and this was just such. Really? Yeah, I've been thinking about different variations of how to get to it. It's a Wonderful Life is a Christmas Carol backwards. You know, it's basically a good man who's told that how dark the world would be if he didn't exist. It's absolutely the flip of this, and you know, and it's a I mean, that's such a beautiful film, and you know, and I've been tonally trying to capture that for quite a while in my life, and just trying to find a new way of doing it, a really new, fresh, unique way of doing it, and then
it's hugely audacious to attempt a Christmas Carol in any way because it's been adapted.
So in a way,
times.
I get away with it by kind of bringing Dan in, and we go in through the Dickens kind of thing, and
you took the backdoor route to a Christmas Carol.
Exactly, but I get to do Christmas Carol, and I get to do a kind of a look at an artist's struggle, and you know, it's a very joyous film. It's a very feel-good film. You'll come out feeling very Christmassy, won't you?
Zesty.
Zesty. That's the word.
That's actually the wonderful thing about this film, not just that it's zesty, but that it is the artist's journey, but it is also a Christmas Carol.
Yeah.
You do get a sense of a Christmas Carol in it, but you don't get the sort of, you don't feel weighed down by another adaptation of a Christmas Carol, which we've seen so many times.
Yeah.
Was that something that you were thinking about while you were making it? Did
No,
you feel
absolutely.
like, oh, I get to make a Christmas Carol?
I mean,
no one's going to judge me.
No, at the bottom of it, it's a very humorous script. It's laugh out loud, and that's kind of the trick that Dickens uses. He kind of makes you laugh and he makes you cry, but at the end there's a little bit of subtext and a little bit of thought into what you're trying to say. So I mean, every filmmaker wants that. It's a crowd pleaser.
Dan, what was it like getting the chance to work with Plummer?
Amazing. Amazing. He turned 87 on our set, and he was just so witty and sharp and just funny, and all of that is in his Scrooge.
He's a naughty little boy. He really is. That's the only way I can describe it. He's got this little glint in his eye.
Story,
what
please.
are you up to, Plummer? And he's always, you know, and he's the first on the set. I used to walk on set and like turn around, doing my day's work, trying to work out where we were going to block it, and I'll turn around. There he's sat, like the ghost of Christmas Past, in the chair in the corner, just working out where my lighting's coming from, just to make sure. I mean, the man is just a, you know, he's done everything. So we had a great time just talking about his past movies and how the directors directed him, and you know, I was in film history kind of heaven. So.
Dan, when you work with someone like Christopher Plummer, do you sort of watch what he does at his age and how he's sort of comfortable working and kind of learn from him a little bit? Because there is that element of older actors who they kind of show, like looking at the lighting, like, oh, you need me to do this? You need me to do this? Okay, I know how to hit that very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose that kind of thing goes in by osmosis, really. I wouldn't say I'm sort of there with a notepad saying, Plummer then raises right eyebrow, and kind of like, but it's more, yeah, his demeanor on set is an incredible thing to learn from. And also, my favorite kind of actor, period, is somebody who is very excited by somebody else who wants to play in the sandbox, and at any age, but particularly, you know, older actors who are excited by a younger person. I guess I'm not that young anymore, but I was once. And you know, but the idea that somebody wants to join the profession and join in the fun. Judi Dench was a great example of somebody with a great twinkle in her eye, and somebody who's just like, yeah, come and play. This is really fun. And Plummer has that in spades, and it's just a delight to be around. It makes for a very, very playful set, and the rapport that Dickens needs with Scrooge. To have that sort of like love-hate thing, and that, you know, Scrooge becomes part of his own character development and just sort of drives Dickens mad, and all of that sort of playfulness came from Christopher just sort of, you know, gently teasing me and
I mean, Dan's a big part of that. I mean, it was I have to say, a really joyous experience, this film. I've been kind of directing for 30 odd years, and I have to say, it's one of the most joyous experiences I've been through. And you know, it's partly due to this man, because he's a real leader of the cast and the crew. You turn up on set and everyone wants to be there. It makes a huge difference. I mean, he was bringing presents every week for the crew. I was like,
it was Christmas.
Christmas baubles and jugs and hats, and he's like, you know, he's got the app of the day that he wants to show everyone. Everyone's just, you know, it was just a gorgeous experience.
Yeah, we've got to work over Christmas, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Make it
Christmassy. It makes it very easy. It's a lot of work. He's on every scene. He's kind of doing all, and then on top of that, he's kind of making everyone feel very welcome. And
where does that come from, Dan, being on set and doing that?
Well, it's a lot of work inventing Christmas, you know. It's, you know, you got to put the hours in. I don't know. I mean, why? But why? why?
He's naturally like that. You can't ask him why he's nice. He's just nice.
No,
so
but like I say, you learn from people like like Plummer and how a set should be really. And I've been on sets that are lovely to work on sets that maybe aren't so a little more awkward. Something's not quite working, and it's difficult to pin down exactly what makes a good set. But I think the sort of family feel of a crew I really love. And like I said, if you are working, people are working long hours over Christmas, you might as well have a bit of fun with it. There were lots of silly sweaters off camera.
That was the mirror of it. He wrote this in the 6 weeks run up to Christmas, and we shot it in the 6 weeks in the run up to Christmas as well. So it was like life imitating art. Yes.
Was it intentional, or is that just?
I'd like to say it was intentional, but because he's the hardest working actor in the world, it was all to do with Dan's schedule. It's like, when can we get him? And look at him. He could have taken 6 weeks off. Most people would just before Christmas. He comes straight to us from his other show and knocked it out.
It was straight off the back of Legion season 1. This film.
There's
quite a lot of Legion in this film.
Let's get some questions from the audience. Who has a question? Right here. You, sir. You have a question. You have a microphone.
I do.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
So I didn't grow up celebrating Christmas either, but I always thought Santa invented Christmas. But I was just wondering, do you know if Charles Dickens was a religious person, and how well the book was received by the Christian community at the time?
He was a Christian. I don't think he was overtly, religious, but I think he had a lot of humanist values, which kind of went across all his books, which I think people kind of pick up on as Christian values. But I think in truth it was all about being kind, being good, being reasonable, helping your fellow man. No man is useless who lightens the burden of another, is his classic quote. And to be honest, that's across all religions. I think it's the best of all religions, really. And that's why I think he's still incredibly important, why he's read across the world. Because I think basic human truths are what he got to. And I think that's what we accessed. We just found the human being, and that anyone can take it for what they want it to be. And I think that's why he's sold in the millions.
Next question, right here.
Hi, question for Dan. How you doing?
Hi.
Fellow Brit. I was reading that you played a young Dickens in Dickens Confidential on BBC Radio.
I did?
Yes, so I was wondering two things. A, did it help you prepare for the role Dickens in The Man Who Invented Christmas? And also, how would you contrast the two characters? Because they're very a young stage in their career.
Sir, don't do more research than me.
That's really, I'm like, radio play from like, that was a sort of fictional account, wasn't it? Of like when he was a journalist and he sort of became like an amateur detective or something. Yeah, that's really amazing that you know that. So yeah, I guess I have played him before, but I didn't feel that there was a huge amount of that came into this. This was, I think, informed by other sort of influences. I mean, there's a fair bit of Gene Wilder in The Hair. And the sort of manic nature of him. There's an amazing book called Becoming Dickens, which is very helpful if you're about to become Dickens, by a man called Robert Douglas Fairhurst, who talks about that period where he was, court clerk and journalist and into his early years, and just sort of, really focusing on that early period, which people don't generally. We regard him as the sort of the great bearded monolith, and so yeah, it was important to me just to focus on those early books and that early life. But yeah, that's really weird that you know about that play. It's great.
Yeah, it is weird. Next question. Right here. This is our last question.
Hi there. This is for both of you. Are there any holiday traditions that you and your family enjoy celebrating every year?
Yes. Every Christmas Eve, I make sure everybody sits down and watches The Muppet Christmas Carol. It's every single Christmas. It's not Christmas without it.
Going to Australia and having a barbecue on Christmas Day.
Nothing says Christmas like Australia.
Unless
you're in Australia.
Yeah, my wife is Australian, so we always head over there, and it's just a very strange feeling, being in shorts and T-shirts celebrating Christmas. But Muppet Christmas Carol comes close. It's like, it is a joyous little film, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah.
I go Scrooged when it comes to my adaptations of a Christmas
You're all
Carol.
over Scrooged. Yeah.
Yes.
Someone else was saying.
Yeah.
I mean, Bill Murray can do
can do no wrong.
Right.
So.
But
But I keep telling everyone that Groundhog Day is my favorite Christmas movie, which doesn't make any sense unless you actually look at the themes of redemption that are in it, and the fact, and there's always snow in it.
Oh, that
and
is true.
It's like, and it's a very Christmas movie. If they just, it could have been called Christmas Day movie, but it's kind of it is my favorite Christmas.
But it does also have elements of A Christmas Carol in terms of sort of like working.
It's a man who goes back and becomes a different person. All the best movies.
Home Alone. Home Alone. Same thing.
Have this bloke.
Have Dickens in there.
Yeah.
Guys, when can people see The Man Who Invented Christmas?
They can see The Man Who Invented Christmas on November the 22nd.
Yeah,
so happy Thanksgiving, Merry Christmas.
Yes.
I think in other territories it's other times of the year.
November the 24th in Canada, if you happen to be in Canada. December the 1st in England, London.
This man knows what's up. He knows.
November the 28th in Australia with your shorts and your Barbie on.
The Man Who Invented Distribution.
New Zealand. Italy's very good.
Oh, yeah?
You sound very good in Italian.
Very good.
It's a Scrooge. And there's... all over the world. I don't know. Just you can follow it around the world if you want. But here, November the 22nd, Thanksgiving.
Guys, it's a wonderful film. Congratulations on a great adaptation. Give them a round of applause, everybody. Thank you.